She doesn't have a commanding grasp of the situation to answer the questions with any sort of authority. And on top of that, the things that she says imply her tactical ineptitude, her strategic ineptitude, her administrative ineptitude, and her leadership ineptitude. Her communication ineptitude is therefore all to see. So I can't fault the opposition leader for this. Yes, I get it. The Prime Minister said that the opposition party is happy, the UNC is happy that crime is not doing well. They have an issue for the election. And to some extent, yes, that is the reality of politics, right? And then he went on to say they don't want the crime talks and they don't want to do anything and they don't want to help us in Parliament because of that. And to some extent, yes, the opposition does oppose for opposing's sake. They do. Let's not, you know, try to sugarcoat it right now. People are dying. This is not the time for sugarcoating. But at the end of the day, let's not judge the message based on the messenger. Let's judge the message based on the contents of the message. When the opposition opposes for opposing's sake, yeah, we could see through it. It's readily transparent when it's in bad faith. But at the end of the day, whether or not it's in bad faith here or not, the logic is not unsound. Because we're not talking about, oh, the project is going to be 2 weeks delayed. We might lose a few $1,000s. We might lose a few tens of thousands of dollars. We might use a few hundreds of thousands of dollars. This will affect our bonus at the end of the year. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about a construction project. We're not talking about some sort of logistical project, some sort of distribution network, digitization of our system. We're not talking about that. We're talking about men and women's lives. So, excuse me for wanting better to be done. I'm sorry if that's unreasonable to you. And to all involved, the opposition leader is not off the hook, by the way. It's just in this situation, I agree with her. But hold on, wait for it. Now, let's move on. Like I said, the second story we have, and the Prime Minister brought up a policeman power audit report that was given to him in 2017, of which the current commissioner is on it. Well, that's ironic. And the person that chaired that report, I believe, Professor Ramesh Diosaran, who, by the way, some criminologists, including Professor Diosaran, thinks that the Prime Minister did put the commissioner on notice. He's just trying to frame it for the public, like, hold on, nothing to see here until May. That is one theory, and the professor could be right. But he went on to say that we need decisive action on this situation, right? TTPS reform is crucial to the fight, right? Here's the problem. Problem number one, the key phrase is, and it was used by both somebody in the opposition and by Professor Diosaran, that the Prime Minister resurrected the manpower audit reports. 2017. We in 2024. So I would like to know exactly what was going on with this report all that time. You know? Are we going to blame the People's Partnership again for not acting on a report that came out after they lost an election? Are we going to blame the opposition bench for not supporting the government about the police manpower report? I don't know if this was even an issue. How much of it was an issue in the last 7 years? At this point, there are so many controversies that it could have actually come up and I've forgotten about it. But if the current commissioner is one of the writers, contributors to this report, why hasn't she done anything about it in the last year? One of the things a commission is supposed to do is not just lead the people underneath him or her. It's also to be an advocate, a lobbyist, a defender of their service, of their people, of their mission to their superiors. Because they are the experts of their job. Right? The Minister of National Security is not an expert with regards to policing. He's not supposed to be. I don't know how far up the ranks he got. He's supposed to be a civilian overseer. especially when it comes to military and paramilitary situations, you want civilian leadership so that you limit the risk of any sort of military coup, basically. And we've had one of those here, and I'm not talking about the one in 1990. So, what is the point of bringing out this now? It's 2017. All the time. Listen, all throughout last year, you could have bring it out, right? What about the year before? You could have bring it out then, right? And then Prime Minister said, well, we can't do these things, I'll get into it further, but I just wanted to point that out. Because there are some people saying, well, IRLA has to act on this report now. Really? Now? After everything that we've seen, why are we confident that she could implement this report? That she could implement, steps and solutions and changes in order to start treating, because this is a long-term problem, with this report, when she can't even command the respect of the rank and file so that they will do simple things like take reports, because you can make a report in every police station, and simple things like wearing their body cameras and using them so that they will be protected in case there are any accusations of police corruption. But apparently the police don't have that concern. They have a greater concern about what might be recorded. That's the implication. So there's more to this, but I'm kind of caught in the middle. I don't want to give away too much. I want to get the clips tomorrow as well when we have more time to unpack it. And I just want to do the last story here. And it was something that technically came from yesterday, but it's pertinent now because it came up in the Prime Minister's press conference. One, Michaela Pandey, she is disappointed in the situation. And she was from before it came up on Tuesday. So this is actually a story from Monday. She is disappointed in the government and the opposition, the majority and the minority of the government on a whole, not having anti-crime talks. And the Prime Minister is very defensive about this. Very defensive about this, to the point where it almost was as though he was looking at the reporters, asking the questions. And these are, you have to understand, it's not as though the reporters was asking the questions in a combative way. And these are some basic questions that any man on the street would want to have answers for. So it's not about whether they're a smart question, whether they're ingenious, whether they're thinking next level. No, sometimes as reporters, you have to ask the things that you know a broad spectrum of the population would want to know, no matter how simplistic it is, no matter how, obvious it might seem. And it seems as though the Prime Minister is starting to get upset at the notion of why we should even have anti-crime talks. Why should I be there? I don't need to be there. It's getting very defensive. Despite the fact that in his same press conference, he did reveal that, yes, when you're doing these things, you have to do it properly. And you have to put a team together. Someone has to chair the meeting. And we decided to put parliamentarians in the meeting. Blah, 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 blah. And then, in the same press conference, say, but it is important for our parliamentarians to do business in Parliament, not to meet outside of Parliament. And at this point, I'm actually thankful I wasn't in the press conference, because I might have asked more direct questions at the hypocrisy of the matter and earned the ire of the Prime Minister. Because at the end of the day, if it's more important for Parliament to work in Parliament, then why were you even entertaining the process? Because of political pressure. And then when it failed, you don't want to take the blame. You want to say, well, look, we did more than them. They didn't name a team. We named the team. Don't mind the fact that they tried to communicate, you didn't communicate back, right? Both sides are basically saying it's their fault. It's their fault, not our fault, their fault. What did I say? I said nobody wants these talks. Nobody. You want to know what would reveal the person who is actually genuine in what they say? The ones who would compromise the most to try to make it happen. Who compromised? Nobody. Nobody compromised. So if you want to tell me that your party did everything they could, yeah, right. Nobody did everything they could. And again, we're not talking about politicians coming together to do something like trying to improve Not that it's not important, road conditions or health care schools. No, we're talking about literally people are dying. It's a little bit more serious than things that are serious. Literally people are dying, but there is no urgency, none, from either party. It's basically a, look, we did our part and they're not doing their part, don't blame us. And then they want to get upset. Well, at least in this case, the Prime Minister. That's not how this works. I mean, the implications of the Prime Minister's statements is that when he was so caught on and having parliamentarians do the business of the people in Parliament, is that, hey, you can't recognize the fact that there's more than one ways to do things sometimes when the law allows for it, when the regulations allow for it. If the regulation says it only could be this way, that's a different matter. But to be a problem solver, a strategic thinker, an innovator, you don't just stick yourself in the box. That sounds like an employee, a worker bee, who is basically trying to give an excuse to his boss on why he failed to do the work that he needed to do because that's in his job description. That's what the Prime Minister sounded like yesterday. But I know he's not that, because at the end of the day, he actually did put a team together. Just that the government was more than happy not to follow through. So what does that leave me to think? It's not that they're incompetent at it, although the statements imply that, but it's not, right? Because the hypocrisy actually disproves it. So what does that leave me with? It leaves me with questions about whether or not this entire thing was done in bad faith. That's what it leaves me with. You want to inspire confidence? We have to believe in your candidate or the Police Service Commission, it's their candidate. You approved of this candidate. You approved of this candidate, one of only 4 candidates apparently, or 3 candidates that could even pass the polygraph test. Your words. We can't even get senior police officers to pass polygraph tests for the Commissioner of Police. That is the state of the service, and we'll get into that more tomorrow. But that is the state of the service right now, and you're going to pull out a 7-year-old report and say, well, the opposition is not helping us. Where was the attempts to even start, to try, to compromise? They just give up halfway. I don't need people that could only do incomplete work. That's why the Ministry of Education is in the state that it's in. That's why the Ministry of Health at times has issues like shortages of drugs and personnel. That's why the fire department does not always have all of the equipment it needs, so people end up dead. That's why things like what happened in Paria can happen. When you allow this toxic environment of, oh, I'm just here to collect a check, I'm signing in, I'm not actually there. And it's one thing if it's some low-level administrator in some government office whose work does not have far-reaching implications. And it's another thing when potentially it happens in Paria where a safety officer overseeing a complex maintenance assignment that is highly dangerous signs in, but it's not actually there. And this is the environment that the Prime Minister has helped foster. And this is why people like Michaela Pandey, who, yes, have had time in Parliament, but at the end of the day, is she there now? Has she been there in a major way within the last 10 years? I would say no, not really. And good. Good, because we still at least have some people who we could try. Whether or not that they will succeed or not, I don't know. But I rather try with those who don't have their hands dirty or the implication of their hands being dirty because they were part of the process that led us to these results. I would rather try with them. All right, I'm sorry. I'm over time. The good lady is waiting. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get into some more discussions. Of course, there's a topic that is very, well, Karen definitely wants to highlight. I want to hear what she has to say, as well as she herself will get into this whole thing with the Commissioner of Police. Stay tuned to Talking Boynton WSN, your content capital show. Michael Small. We'll be right back.
Like many others trying to save on Carnival, Gabby thought she should go for 50% off makeup.
What about the other side? Will Daisy 50% off offer? So, you know?
No makeup artist we don't know. What we do know is the savviest savings for Carnival are at KFC. Get a Jab Jab box, 1-piece chicken, 1 regular fries, and a biscuit for only $25.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sport?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Welcome back to the Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. Switching gears, going back to the economy. Why? Because it's important. Why? Because at the end of the day, we feel the pinch. We feel the fact that food prices are going up, but salaries are not necessarily going up. A lot of people think the economy is also helping or contributing to driving crime. And of course now, when you're speaking about the economy, you have to speak about energy. And waves were made within Venezuela between the United States and Maduro last week. So with us, of course, we have the good lady herself. I think some of these waves might have unfolded. Sorry. Well, just waves in the sense of the whole situation now with the Venezuelan elections has come to a head. And it is troubled waters that we find ourselves in.
No, again.
Again.
And that, I think let's just track back and good morning to everyone. And the reason we're bringing up, I think, Dragon Field, because as Sean is saying, we are still an energy-based economy. Although there are persons, we've had top economists say that Curacao has no oil, but they have a refinery. So that's another discussion. But we're going to stick to the natural gas issue, and in particular, the Dragon Field, which was touted to be the savior for Trinidad. And main reason being that we need, as a minimum, for the LNG sector, as well as the downstreaming sector, which is really where we make our money, which is where the revenue really comes from. We need 4.1 billion cubic feet per day. And we are now between 2.7, 2.8 cubic feet per day. Now we've licensed all the deep water rounds, but you know, the last one they had, it came up empty. Those take up a number of years, and the concern now is that whilst the minister has touted the granting of a license by the Venezuelan government, Maduro, a 20-something year license for joint venture arrangements between PDVSA, I always say it wrong, but it's not PDVSA, it's PDVSA. Anyway, PDVSA, sorry, I'll have to say that. Not only with them, but also with other international companies. But I don't know if people know that's nothing new. ENI and Repsol have been operating there in the natural gas environment for a number of years, and they put a halt when President Trump, as he then was, put in a number of sanctions that affected both ENI and Repsol, which made them put a little hold. So this thing about granting licenses in the natural gas environment by the Maduro government or Chavez is nothing new. It is not a new development. The issue for us is that the natural gas at this point in time is three places. One, Dragon Field, which has trillions of cubic feet of natural gas. It is in Venezuela's waters. Then is the Lauren Manatee. 70% is trillions of cubic feet in Venezuelan waters, and 30% in Trinidad waters. The issue is to get that gas. That's not what they've been focusing on, is on Dragon Field. But just to be clear, whilst they have trillions of cubic feet of natural gas in Dragonfield, the line to bring it, which Shell is the operator, to bring it to Trinidad, to the Hibiscus platform located in our waters, is about 135 million. You heard what I said? Not billion, million. Some say 200 million. I heard the Prime Minister say 350, but I think 200 million cubic feet. That's not going to do very much. And then you have the Manatee, a similar situation. Why that is also even troubling, because again, it's Shell involved, and Shell up to now will not sign off, as far as I'm aware, on a final decision of whether they're going to exploit the Manatee side of the Lauren-Manatee arrangement. And I don't know if you recall, but the intention was the Prime Minister had announced that both Trinidad and Venezuela were going to jointly develop the Lauren-Manatee gas fields. And then when all of these sanctions were imposed by the United States, we said we had to go it alone. So right now, let us be realistic now. The license that the minister got, let's deal with that license, the first license. The first license we would want to talk about is the license that allowed for these joint venture arrangements, which both the opposition Venezuelan government, in opposition in Venezuela, as well as the Venezuelan government, agreed to sign an accord, so to speak, in Barbados, agreeing to develop for these joint venture arrangements. That's between both of them, and that was touted as a big accomplishment. But you cannot forget, and this is what you may not want to recall it, but that in 2019, Trump and then Biden continued. He gave a general sanction, and that general sanction was for 6 months. But the key to it, of course, was so how far you think you will reach with that pipeline? It's only 17 kilometers. You have to get the shareholders' agreement. How far are you going to reach with it? So 6 months is not enough. But the real stinger was he said that it could only be done in kind, not in cash. And the Venezuelans said that's a form of colonial enslavement to be putting these kinds of sanctions. So now the question is being asked even by the Americans if the use of sanctions should be used as a diplomatic tool rather as a punitive weapon, which it has been used traditionally or has been seen to be used by the Americans. And now with BRICS and Russia and the geopolitics, they may be rethinking their position.
Just to interrupt there, my only thing about using it as a diplomatic tool as opposed to a punitive one, the unfortunate reality is we also have, basically, history says, certain types of leaders, they'll just string you along with diplomacy. They'll give you lip service and do just what they need for you to give them what they want, but they're not actually necessarily going to fall through there. And in fact, lifting the sanctions, saying, okay, but we want free and fair elections. So I understand, because there's examples that punitive measures also don't work, right?
I don't think they mean to lift the sanctions,
Right.
That's not what I understood them to be saying. They are not saying that we're not going to pursue the sanctions, but I think it is a turnaround in the way you think, because when they try the maximum pressure,
right,
which was to break the hold that Maduro had in Venezuela, and in particular over the army and the military, and they call it the maximum pressure. That's not my terminology, it's their terminology. It did not work. And when they tried to have the world acknowledge Juan Guaido as the president, it also did not work, because soon after, as we have said before, Maduro took away all the powers of the National Assembly, created a National Constituency Assembly, and gave them the power to make laws and so on. So what I think they're trying to say is maybe we need to relook how we use sanctions. Not that we won't use sanctions,
right, but
this is how we use sanctions. I think that is the message. Not they won't use it, but do they need to relook at it? And what I was saying is that the 6 month period, the general sanctions has gone, And now they're looking again now at what we now know as the specific sanctions in particular areas. And those are areas in which the PDVSA operates: mining, petroleum, and gold. And it's 2 years, according to our minister. It's more than 2 years, because he added, he said 2 years, it's really 2 years and 10 months. But okay, that is so. But the key to it all, and this is what we can't forget, whilst the Venezuelans said they're giving us a license, which they've given to others. We're not the only one. And in fact, in earlier reports I've done on this very same show, I have said that the restrictions on natural gas are not as strict as those in oil, partly because a lot of the natural gas is owned by private companies, not only by the national company. In addition, the PDVSA itself has been inviting companies to invest in national gas. So we have to be careful how much we put to that. But what we have to look at now is the 2-year one. Now, I do think Europe definitely has had a part in it, because they are obviously being affected. They want the LNG, and the Russia-Ukraine war certainly affected them. But America, for America, we talk about geopolitics. This side of the world is America's side of the world, politically. It hasn't changed. Cold War, no Cold War, détente, no détente, peaceful coexistence, you call it what you want. That's reality. So my understanding is that a lot of what the pressure sort of to put on the Biden administration, they have put conditions to the removal of all sanctions. They're giving them 2 years and 10 months. Well, according to our minister. So let's say it's the 2 years. And they say if these things are accomplished, then they remove all sanctions, right? But I think what would have been very persuasive, I don't have the evidence, but I think it was very persuasive, that is, they did the accord in Barbados, and the countries that were most affected are places like Haiti, Jamaica, which they agreed that LNG would be sent to Jamaica and Haiti and a number of these Caribbean countries. Because remember, under the Petro-Caribbean arrangement, these countries, all these CARICOM countries, except Trinidad and Barbados, signed on to an arrangement where they paid 40% less for oil at 1% interest rate. So they are badly affected. And you were talking about airlines, which I think is important.
Yes, because at the end of the day, given tourism, you know, the thing with this is, and we saw this with food when the Ukraine war happened, not just with the price of gas went up, but food prices went up. It doesn't matter if we don't buy Russian gas. Right. You take it out of the market, you take Ukraine grain out of the market, and the whole global economy, you know, gets out of whack and prices rise. So the airline industry is, you know, to what extent have they recovered from COVID? Only now to get hit with higher fuel prices when the war started. So all of that is up in the air. And to some extent, yes, the Caribbean region has been, outside of us, we have different parameters of recovery, has been having a tough time trying to get themselves back on their feet. They've managed to have GDP growth, but we're talking, you know, a 5% increase of what it was post-COVID, exactly. You know, when your economy is depressed.
It might be minus something when
if
you go
5 years back and compare,
exactly.
Right? So, so there's that, and then there's also the fact that you brought up climate change, and the fact that Europe is having to compensate by reopening coal mines. So
there you go.
So now, basically, Africa and the Caribbean can say, whoa, you all said coal is bad, so we need the gas so they don't use coal, right?
Yes. And I also think that, I mean, the industrialized world, which is not the Caribbean, is really largely responsible for what we're experiencing as climate change. And when you have countries, small, very vulnerable countries in the Caribbean who depend on tourism, it's not just having rain when you didn't expect it. It's having hurricanes.
Yes.
It's having things that destroy your infrastructure. And America must look at the concerns for their own geopolitical interests, that it is not in their interest not to support. And that is why people like the Prime Minister of St. Vincent came out and supported, you know, having talks with Maduro, because his country has been affected.
Yeah.
So I think America is not only looking at, well, these poor little countries, They didn't cause climate change, but more importantly, the geopolitical environment is so fragile, I think, and so tenuous at this time.
Yes.
It's not helpful to them to put pressure on these small countries. So that has been...
Well, we're a whole voting bloc in the UN, right? For all, you know, like
exactly.
at the end of the day, that's still 13, 14, 15, 16, when you add it all up in your region.
But it's not only a voting bloc. What you're doing is nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
So what you are doing is, if you are not helping us, and we're begging for help, and we're telling you what you're doing is causing social and economic discord in our countries, then you are making way for Gucci to run. The Gucci being the people from the Asian, Russian, and other influences.
But I know you mentioned some of the private sector concerns, but
yes.
with us, it's Shell, and I think one of the things that we underestimate, it's not a deal between just Trinidad and Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, right? Some people, myself included, said, well, the United States essentially is a hidden partner in this deal, right?
100%.
But then there's the private partner, and that's Shell.
And I just want to say this before we go to the read, because I think that's important. One of the conditions that for the 2-year extension that was granted by Biden very recently, and which we were very happy about, was that he said they had to have an exchange of prisoners. I think one of the #1 persons was a man called Saab, a Colombian who was supposed to be involved in a lot of corruption, and also exchange of U.S. political prisoners. November was the date. They did not stick to the date, but there was an exchange. So that part of the deal was upheld. But the real crunch is this, the prospect of free and fair elections. And what they have said, you've got to allow Maria Machado to be able to participate, because she is the choice of the opposition. And she was given permission after she lost at the lower court. There's a special court, the Venezuelan Supreme Tribunal of Justice heard her matter, and they determined that she is banned from participating in the national elections due this year for 15 years. Now that is very worrisome, because for the Americans, certainly they felt she was the answer to having this democracy.
Not just that, I mean, from the outside looking in, if this is the person, presumably, that everybody's saying this is who the opposition supporters want to represent them, and they basically ban her, it's hard to make an argument that the elections are free and fair.
Well then, okay, so then we look at this way. No, I'm being very careful, please, I'm really being very careful. The allegations were that when Guaido attempted to take over, I don't know if any direct, but indirectly she supported what amounts to treason, because you have a duly elected government, and for you to conspire, so to speak, or allegedly conspire with someone who's trying to overthrow a legitimately elected government, whether you like the government or not, that amounts to, could be amount of treason. I mean, if we're going to go down that road, what about the January 6th, what insurrection in the United States? Should that not be enough to ban Trump, some people may say, from taking part in elections? Should that whole scandal with Atlanta, with saying that the machines were rigged and it happened not to be true, is not an attack on free and fair elections in their country? So, you know, you have to be very careful, and I am being very careful, because, I mean, it's accusation of treason, but then she's not arrested. Yeah, so. but what I'm saying is, if your basis is that, then you could turn around and say, well, how you letting a man who apparently did nothing and allowing him to run as president? So it seems like a double standard. And the latest thing that they have, do we have to go for a break?
Quickly.
Well, okay, because February of this is now, what they say in the Associated Press detailed that there's been a year-long covert operation by the U.S. That's Associated Press. And yes, it's Associated Press. In 2018? No, going on now. February 2024, the Associated Press details a year-long covert operation by the USDA, Department of
Drug Enforcement.
Right, we see that said undercover operatives are in Venezuela to build a drug trafficking case against the country's leadership, and it was released accidentally. This is February 2024. This is now.
To some extent, we've been asking for that, but the long and short is there are a lot of questions, and then when you get to the point where private sector money has to invest in this pipeline to get the gas from Dragon to
and their
Hibiscus.
And if you are since 2013, if you are a shareholder, you deal in Maduro, you going to take a chance that with Maduro?
The government, either the man or the successor to the man that privatized all of our assets, are we going to take that risk?
That is the problem. That is the big problem, I think.
And at the end of the day,
talk about earlier though, but
there's too much of it. Well, we might get to that after this, but we have to take a break for news in the hour now. When we return, we'll open the 4 lines. And depending, you know, we could field some questions with regards to the Commissioner of Police. I feel we have different opinions somewhat.
I think we do.
I think we do, but more after the break.
Surprisingly.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Yo, it's Rome! And this year we want to have a safe carnival just like every other carnival. So this year we're talking a smart carnival. We're talking safety measures against real threats. We're gonna fet smart, we're gonna play smart, and move smart because it's all about rum, gal, and money. Not that no call way, no time for folly. We jamming all day. Jamming on the roadway. If you see me in a Benz or a Beamer, hustle hard for me.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, now is the time we open the phone lines. But while we wait for the callers, I guess let's give Karen the floor and let's start the fireworks.
Let's say that,
let's start the fireworks.
No. We had a little bit of fireworks over in the break, only because maybe there's a lawyer in me, you know. So as a lawyer in me, I did go to see on what basis is the government were able to rationalize their extension of earlier Christopher, Commissioner of Police, who became 60 in May last year,
yeah.
and she got this extension, and then she's into another round of extensions. And the Section 75 does say you could get 2 sets of extensions. But it did not seem to, in my view, I do not think that Section 75, of 74 actually, was really contemplating a commissioner. I really don't think so, because they talked about those in the 1st Division, and then they talked about officers in the 2nd Division, and they seem to have their eyes on them.
Is it that there's this gray area that hasn't formally been addressed?
Right, and so I don't think that they intended, in my respectful opinion, when they talk about, and the heading is age of retirement of police and that extension, I really do not think that they meant to include the commissioner and deputy commissioner. And one of the reasons why I felt so was because the Constitution in 2006 was changed, and for the first time, the commissioner and deputy commissioner were given powers that would have almost extensive powers to discipline, transfer, promote, all the things that the commissioner alone could do. Anybody under the rank of commissioner or anyone that he appointed under his instructions could do all those things without having to go to the commission, which would have been the case before.
Police Service Commission.
Police Service Commission, which used to be the case before. So with such a drastic change in the power, extreme power of... you have a caller?
We have a caller, but that's a good point. Unfortunately, that's a point I might make a case. I agree with you, though. I don't have a problem with her extension last year. That I don't have a problem with.
No, okay.
But yes, it's a question of law. But we have St. James on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I don't know if you all care to discuss or elaborate on the Prime Minister made a lot of statements about following the process and so. Why would he then interfere in the process when he took back the list from the then president? I don't know if you all wanted to discuss on that.
I mean, yes, go ahead.
I can answer. And number one, he didn't take, well, let us say...
He said that he saw no list, right?
Okay,
notice, very careful with his phrasing, I believe there.
So the issue really is the president. And under the Constitution, the president is sort of immune from any action. You cannot inquire into whether or not the president did or didn't do what they were supposed to do. And that has been tested in cases before. So that's probably why they're putting all the focus on the Police Service Commission. Now, under the legislation, this is our Constitution, between 120, I think it's 123, once the merit list has been prepared and completed by the Police Service Commission, what the legislation, the Constitution says, that they will then give that list to the president, and the president shall prepare a notification to Parliament. There is no authority. If somebody says it was immediately taken back, it could only be taken back if it was given to you. And the president herself, when they asked her to appoint someone to act as commissioner when Mr. Griffith was no longer commissioner, she wrote to the Police Service Commission and said, I have no powers to do that. I operate within the 4 corners of the Constitution. I can only do what the Constitution allows me to do. So for her to have said that it was immediately withdrawn, it only meant that she gave it back. She had no power to do that. So, and clearly that happened the same day when the Prime Minister came. So obviously it looks very bad on her part, and she has left as our president not on a good note. I don't know, you don't hear much about her, and I think she has done herself a wrong. But she is wrong, in my respectful opinion, to tell the Prime Minister, if he said anything to her about any report, to listen, you see that report? You're going to show it to Parliament. Because I don't have any power to give back that report. You see the Constitution? I already told them that I have to operate within the 4 corners of the Constitution, and that's why I couldn't put somebody to act. So right now, I operated under Section 123, and once that list is handed to me, the only thing, it doesn't say you may prepare the notification, it says you shall prepare it.
And there's no disclaimer if you are satisfied.
Nothing
there's
about
no,
it.
Right.
No discretion at all. They just tell you will do this, right? You are just like the thoroughfare. And for you...
One-way street.
Yeah, one-way street. And for the Prime Minister to come on the same day, and you said immediately withdrawn. What does that mean? That is passive tense. You want to say it was handed to you, and then when whoever whispered in your ears, you say, well, look, you have no right to do that. So send it to the Parliament, let them make the decision, not you.
And Caller, this is where the Prime Minister's participation comes into question. We don't know exactly what happened.
But he had something to do with it.
It was believed to be that he was there. He initially initially denied it indirectly, and then eventually confirmed it, right?
Yeah, so all of it together, you have to be a fool not to figure it out.
He was careful to say, I didn't see no list. Right. In an attempt to distance himself from the situation. But
before that, he kept saying he bad talking is Gary Griffin. You know, whether he right or wrong, I am not. But that, you know, I don't know if you look at the Hansard report, but I went and did an article. I did an article, and I went right to the Hansard report. And when he said that when they made that change, that allowed the commissioner to be appointed by the Parliament and through that process. He said he was beside himself, because he said you're making a deal with the opposition. Before, all the Prime Minister had to do in the quiet of his office, and they sent him a list. He don't like it, he sent it back. Now they send it to Parliament, so he didn't like it. So his talking was very wrong, and he was sending a message for who could listen, could hear, including the Commission, including the President, that I do not want Gary Griffith there. And he had a very good feeling, I am sure, that Gary Griffith was at the top of the list, and he had no right to be there in President's house on that day, especially on the day when the list was being handed to the President, and the President had no right to immediately withdraw. What in heaven's name? You are a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. What does that mean? To withdraw something is to give it back.
And the thing is also, the Prime Minister...
Never answer that, though.
The Prime Minister, at the end of the day, Gary Griffith was on the next list. They redid the whole Police Safety Commission. But my point is, the whole action of the withdrawal was democracy. Right, but my point is, they went through all of that, and then they still had to put his name on the list anyway in the end.
Do you, like, you have some right? I can tell you something else too.
What I'm saying is, the whole effort was a complete
but it's
and
not
utter
even
waste.
don't put that emphasis on it. The President had no right to be there, and the Prime Minister had no right to be there, and the President had no right to do what she did.
Morning caller, Mr. San Fernando, how are you doing?
Yes, good morning. Firstly, I looked at that press conference, and I really don't think that's worthy of a comment today, and I think my time too valuable. I am fed up of this crap. Secondly, I listened to Karen's discourse on the issue with the Venezuelan issue.
Yeah.
And you know what stands out in this whole issue with this talk about not renewing licenses unless Machado stands in the election. What the U.S. government is asking in Venezuela is that the Venezuelan government presently, the present Venezuelan government, interfere with the judicial process. That's what they're asking. Can they interfere with the Supreme Court in the United States of America?
Exactly.
I mean, they have the appointees to the court. They have conservatives and those things. However, that doesn't happen, at least on the face of it. But they are asking the Venezuelan government to, because the courts are the one that made this decision in Venezuela, the courts. Exactly. And now they want the government to interfere with the courts for them to get their way. And I am not seeing Maduro doing this. This is Maduro has already withstood the onslaught under Trump, and he is not turning back.
And do you know something, just before you say something?
With respect to us. Have a good day.
Thank you,
just to say something, the deputy president, what's her name?
Kamala Harris?
No, not woman Venezuela. What's her name again?
I'm not sure.
Oh gosh, she's been to Trinidad with a suitcase and all that.
Oh Lord.
Anyhow,
gosh, don't say it like that.
No, but it's just
don't say it like
that. But no. But what I want to say is this. She said it. She said our Supreme Court has ruled, and we are a sovereign nation. Yeah. We have made, you said this was the condition,
okay,
and we comply with the condition.
I understand that, but my point is, to what extent can we be confident that the Supreme Court
what about the American?
An independent institution? And I pointed out the fact that I don't necessarily believe that the American Supreme Court is 100% independent.
No, because of how they appointed. Remember when, remember when Obama tried and they stopped it?
Think about it.
Anyway, we look
Mr. Mann made a whole new legislative body, right? How is that constitutional? Anyway, Shabona's on the line. Good morning. Good morning, caller. You're on here. Hello? Hello, caller? Caller, you're on the air. Don't listen to your TV. You have to mute your TV, caller. Caller, hello?
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Yeah. I listened to the matter of the meritless withdrawal, and everybody who talk about this have a slightly different slant. Yes, we have a thing here. The slant most of them have is that this matter happened before the president. From what I gathered, from what Dr. Awawali said, when he went there, he met the person who gave him the list coming out back from the president. And when he asked her what is going on, she said, well, she just put in the merit list. And Dr. Awawali said, did you investigate the report I made? And then she said, no, I forget. And that is when she went back to get the merit list. Now, Karen is saying, you cannot, once you're giving the report, you cannot take it back. Now, from an administrative point of view, I am no lawyer. I know cases where when you give up something and you realize there's an error in it, what you can remove it, but you have to give the reason, right? So that is my difference. I believe you can withdraw the list, but you have to give a reason. Okay. And the reason was something that should have been investigated was not investigated, and then it went to somebody to investigate.
Okay, and that is in normal life.
And that, I may be wrong.
But this is what I wanted to say to you. In a company and in an organization, there's a very good point. We're talking about the Constitution. The Constitution is the highest court of the land. And there are reasons for that, because what they really want is for the Parliament, because since they changed the law in 2006, they want the Parliament to debate whether that person who the Police Service Commission has put at the top of the list, because there is provision that if they don't agree to the first choice, they will go to the second. The Constitution is very clear, and that is our highest law. There's no law further than that. And it says, once the list is handed, the president shall do the notification. Shall is mandatory. There's no getting around anything about giving it back. It's very, very clear. So the question is, and what, as I said earlier, the reason why I'm so, sure, but when I want to say confident about that, is because when the same Police Service Commission had written her earlier on and asked her to please appoint someone in the interim to act as the Commissioner of Police, she wrote her back a letter, which I have, which says that I cannot do it. I am a creature of statute. You hear that? I am a creature of statute. I can only do what the Constitution allows me. I'm bound by the four. And the four corners tell her that once that list is handed to her, you notify Parliament, and you see that same report that you're talking about, send it to Parliament and let them debate it.
The thing is, Professor, also, they never actually formally gave us a reason. So even if that was allowed, they didn't actually give us a reason. They implied a lot of things, and then the whole situation is still...
But it doesn't matter if...
I understand.
This is what I think people don't understand. This is about democracies. You know, when, and you might think I'm going off on a tangent, but it comes to the issue of an action for privilege, for defamation in a court of law. And that is, people say things about somebody else in a court of law and say, how you could let them get away with that? Did they defame my name? But you see, the court says, you know something, they have to look at the bigger picture. If we don't allow that sort of thing, it means people will not speak freely in the court and we will not do justice. Same thing at parliamentary privilege. They tell you to the Parliamentary Privilege Committee to deal with you when you defame someone because you cannot treat it like a defamation. It's the same thing with our parliament. You have made a decision that it should no longer be the decision of the Prime Minister because it is too political. The Office of Commissioner of Police is a very powerful position. You could
Especially
decide,
now.
Wait, and listen, and I don't know if you remember with Jeffrey Henderson, and when they wrote him, he got a letter from the then Attorney General of the PNM government back in the days, so I would have been around. I might not have been there in that government, but I was back in the days. One was instructing him what to do in relation to a particular individual, and it was in the papers where Jeffrey Anderson said, you cannot tell me what to do. Section 811, they put that for a purpose to constitutionally insulate him. So when you see a constitution has certain provision, it's there for a reason. And the reason is, it is not for the Prime Minister indirectly to say who is going to be Commissioner of Police so that he has the person he wants. I'm not saying that's what he wants, but that's what he could want. Or that there was that famous case, and the Thomas case, he talked about that he could decide who to prosecute, who not to prosecute. Then you don't want that, then your democracy is at threat. So it go through this process to let Parliament see all the information. If what he has in his report on this man is so bad, let the Parliament see it.
Exactly.
Right. So he has no right to interfere.
Well, apparently...
Or for the President to have done, in my respectful view, what you so careful the language was, lawyer language, it was immediately withdrawn. You cannot withdraw something if it was not given to you.
Right. And the thing is, yes, the Prime Minister afterwards has tried to apparently put the report in Parliament, and the court sided with Guy Griffith. So now we have to ask the question, to what extent
because natural justice,
right.
Because of natural justice issues.
We have a caller from El Socorro. Good morning,
which he
caller.
should know about with land deed.
Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, morning, Sean. Morning, Mr. Sheriff.
Morning, morning.
Crime again. Let me just report that I was present at 2 crime forums recently. January 31st, I was present at the People's Roundtable at Cipriani Labour College. Very prominent speakers. Wayne Haid from Uganda. There was Pastor Clyde Dottin, Project 600, Issa Mohammed, Rhoda Reddock, and others. And what I heard in that forum, and I would not pinpoint speakers to what they said individually, but it would make your blood crawl. Crime bosses, extortion, judiciary fearing criminals. This is what I heard. So this thing is not really at the surface what we're seeing, but it's deep-rooted. And then recently, at the constituency of Baratier and Sawa, MP Saddam Hussein had a crime gathering with constituents, and businessmen were there expressing fear. The inspector of police for Baratier Police Station was there. And it was shocking to hear that there's one vehicle on patrol for Barataria, which has a constituency over 20,000 people. One vehicle. I mean, I can't even... I am speechless, Mr. Sheriff.
Well, okay, I want to say two things.
Speechless.
I want to say two things.
You talk about resources. And before I go, I mean, I know you're speaking in between, so I'm not hearing too clearly.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
That Maraval robbery in broad daylight Sunday morning in front of the pharmacy, it's all over the internet. That's so frightening. I mean, what is really happening? And these guys are putting blankets on your face so you can't recognize them when they rob you. This I am getting psychologically wary about this crime situation in this country. It is out of control. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to make 2 comments in regards to what you said, because what I found was noteworthy. I didn't attend the UNC, didn't know anything except that I don't really want to, me personally, because I am in a political group that I want to necessarily, I don't know, optics and so on. But what struck me, and I said it to others, I said, do you realize the cross-section of people who were there? And ethnicity, for one. I don't know what people's religious beliefs are, but I mean, I could take a guess that not everybody there was of the same religious belief. And the huge number of persons that went there. And this is something called by a political party, yet is the extent to which this country feels overwhelmed by the crime in this country made people set aside all of their whatever constraints they would have had. And the other one I want, and I have to say this because I tried to upload it to my Facebook, which I don't have much on, but I'm going to try very hard to do this. You know, is it a faint surprise of the Prime Minister to say that he now knew, or I don't want to misread it, but I got the impression he seemed to be surprised that we have transnational organized crime in this country. But I wrote an article, wrote something, because Dana Sital was killed in 2014. And Mr. Brownsfield, who was Secretary of State and also in charge of drugs and something, but anyway, dealing with drugs and ammunition and so on. Right. Said in 2014, I wish I had the quote right with me, he said very clearly, he said this was not a case of a handbag, trying to get a handbag and things went wrong. He said, I don't want to say this again, he said this is a transnational organized crime organization that has its roots in Trinidad and Tobago. He said that in 2014. And we also know, because the Americans have said it, everybody has said it, that the drugs and the guns are coming through Colombia and Venezuela. Yet, there seems to be no end of Venezuelans, I don't mean anything against them, but no end of unregulated Venezuelans coming from the very country where we're seeing the drugs are coming from. And again, I am going to take a chance, but this is what you call fair comment, and I feel it's a fair comment to make. I feel that the Americans have had enough, and they are putting pressure on our government to deal with these guns and deal with the drugs, because it affects them, it's coming to their country, and I have a feeling, and they're going to shout and scream at me, which if they mean they shout and scream at me, means I'm really making a good point. So I'm saying that already. I have a feeling that one of the reasons that our Prime Minister went up to the United States, because I think they read in the Riot Act, and told him that he needs to deal with this transnational drug organization, which he has to know about. The man, the United States told you that in 2014. How are you pretending you don't know? And when they ask the police about gangs, they say gangs they've so the 6s, the 7s, now we have the 8s and the 9s and whatever else they have. And every last one of them say, what is their business model? Drugs, guns, then they come down with
prostitution, human trafficking,
etc., etc., etc. But that's the number thing. How it is, you did 9 years, and it seemed that from what I read, as though you seem to be surprised that we have a transnational organization here. I think the Americans...
there were indicators that it was even before.
Yeah, but I'm just saying is, Mr.
Official,
Brownfield
yes.
came and officially told the country that. And 9 years later, it is just my opinion, and I might be wrong, but I have a feeling one of the reasons he hightailed it up to America is because they read in the Riot Act. That's my view.
So I'll just say this, with regards to the opposition leaders' crime talks, it was very interesting that they did not use the banner of their political party.
They did not.
Right? The PNM had a counter rally. Notice PNM, there was red everywhere, and I found the contrast very much unfortunate, although it might be something that most people would not pick up on, but as a communicator, I pick up on it, right?
Right.
Now, with regards to the crime situation, and I said it, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. The crime talks between the government and the opposition are not the be-all and end-all. But, what we're seeing is nobody is willing to compromise on anything.
Nobody is willing to deal with the problem, which we all know it's transnational organized crime in this country.
So my point is, everybody is just, we're gonna do what we always do. We're not gonna actually do anything. We're not gonna actually put any extra effort.
No, we're gonna hire new officers.
That is a stopgap, because we can't even properly equip the existing officers.
You don't understand. We're tired of you trying to fool us. It may seem off the point, But all of a sudden, 9 years you're there with constituent form. He never thought it was important. Michaela Pandey said that was her father's dying wish. All of a sudden, you put a pickup side, as people have said. One or two are not,
Basically.
but some, because I have to correct myself, one or two are not. But some people say they're pickup side only because they said they don't have any history in constitutional reform or known to be in the constitutional reform. That's his government. Just need you to shut us up.
My thing
shut
is
us up. That's what they are the government of shut you up.
At the end of the day, we are not
Shut you
actually
up.
seeing any extra effort. If this is that important, where's the effort? We're just seeing the usual song and dance.
It's called shut you up, and it will go away and we'll go on to something new. You don't understand? I was in government. I was in government.
The problem is crime is not stopping.
Yeah, but that's why
the violence is escalating.
That's why he had to. That's why I feel he went to America.
And
that's my fair comment. I do not know, but I feel that's why he went.
The violence is escalating, folks, and this next election might be more important than we think at the end of the day. Will this be the issue? Will this be the issue?
It looks so,
right?
That's an economy.
It looks so, and we have to deal with the fact that two political parties are jockeying for position and using this as an issue as opposed to actually fixing it. That's what it looks like to me.
You never know if there might be a
That's what it
force.
looks like to me. Right? Well, we'll see about that. No comment on that.
No,
one.
fine, no comment.
Right,
no
thank
comment,
you
no
to all
comment.
our callers. Thank you, Karen, for joining me once again. Folks, this is WSN's Talking Point. Make today a good day, as my co-host always says. And even with all the pessimism and the bad news and the heartache and the tragedy, I still believe in TNT.
Yes, we do.
Folks, we will see you.
I love Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, I've only lived in one place all my life.
And that's why you're here and doing what you're doing.
And we will see you with that tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth
sewing. So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there, next in Seth. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have 2 of the 3 species of anteaters right here.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have 2. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
no. Let's go to the last part.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, right, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The caption of this video reads, "The escape of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar documented." It was chosen by the Israeli army, who released the images, allegedly the first showing Sinwar, circled here, since October 7th. The Israelis say they used artificial intelligence to recognize the man who is believed to have planned the attacks on southern Israel.
While the people of Gaza are suffering above ground, Sinwar is hiding in tunnels underground underneath them, running like the coward that he is.
Hamas has yet to react. The Israelis say this is just the first of several videos of Sinwar they have found in their operations in Gaza's southern tunnels.
One video or another is not what really matters. What is important is the intelligence we reveal. What is important is that it will allow us to reach senior Hamas officials and the hostages, and we are determined to reach them.
A threat that is part of the Army's communication strategy. This other video shows an alleged hiding place with money and food, another criticism of Hamas leaders. Israeli media say some Gazans have voiced anger at Hamas after the video showing Yahya Sinwar. But although reports show there is criticism against the group among Gazans, no video will lessen their fury at Israel for carrying out such deadly operations in the Gaza Strip in its war against Hamas.
Well, meanwhile, 2 Al Jazeera journalists have been severely wounded in an Israeli airstrike on Rafah. The broadcaster says reporters Ismail Abu Omar and cameraman Ahmed Matar are both in a serious condition. According to the channel, they were targeted by an Israeli drone. Now, this afternoon, President Macron has led a tribute to Robert Badinter, France's former Minister of Justice. He was one of France's most respected intellectuals, and he died on Friday at the age of 95. Honouring him today, Macron said, "The dead are listening."
It was not a political question. It was a question of morals. It was a case of conscience. Robert Badinter convinced. A majority voted for the law in its entirety. A majority made up of the left, joined by members of the opposition, led by Jacques Chirac. Robert Badinter won his biggest case. Behind every single person who was damned, condemned, forgotten, the Justice Minister always saw human life.
Well, covering the tribute was our reporter Antonia Kerrigan. She's at Place Vendôme, where that tribute took place.
Hundreds gathered here at Place Vendôme in Paris today to pay tribute to the man who held the office behind me, the Ministry of Justice, for 5 years in the 1980s. Among them were dignitaries, but also hundreds of members of the public who leant over the barriers opposite to watch the ceremony. Some of those we spoke to were fortunate enough to meet him personally and expressed not just a great deal of admiration for his life's work, abolishing the death penalty in France and decriminalising homosexuality, but also a great deal of affection for the person himself. The ceremony included an address by President Emmanuel Macron, who went back over some of the marking key moments from his career. He referred to him as the man who lived and snatched life from the hands of death, a reference, of course, to the 6 lives that Badinter saved by defending people charged and facing potentially the death penalty, and also the lives he saved by eventually abolishing the death penalty as minister. The ceremony also included, the whole audience was shown a montage of videos and photos from his life, which ended with an extract from an interview in which he said that at the end of his life, when he died, when he met God, he would like God to say to him, "You have done what you could, now come in."
Well, with some more on Badinter's life and legacy, here's Charlotte Hughes.
La peine de mort, c'est la justice qui tue. Je n'accepte pas une justice qui tue.
On September 17, 1981, Robert Badinter entered history with this speech.
J'ai l'honneur
On behalf of the French Republic, I have the honor to ask the National Assembly to abolish the death penalty in France.
At the time France's Justice Minister, he brought about the abolition of the country's death penalty. It had been the fight of his life. Badinter developed a thirst for justice while still a public school student in Paris, where he was born in 1928 to a Jewish family of Moldovan origin. His adolescence was marked by the death of his father, who was captured during the Nazi occupation of France and killed in the Sobibor concentration camp in Poland. After studying literature and law, he became a lawyer in Paris. In 1972 would come a major turning point in his life, as he failed to spare his client from the guillotine. Roger Bontemps had been condemned for being an accomplice in the murder of 2 hostages in a prison break.
La France a peur.
5 years later, by then a committed activist, Badinter would succeed in saving child murderer Patrick Henry from the death penalty. As Justice Minister from 1981 to 1986, he was nicknamed the murderer's lawyer, but remained undaunted in his commitment to human rights.
While I was Justice Minister, I had very clear ideas about making the French justice system more human, and it was very unpopular.
During his mandate, he would reform France's use of solitary confinement, decriminalise homosexuality, and grant French litigants access to the European Court of Human Rights. As minister, he achieved the extradition of the Gestapo officer Klaus Barbie from Bolivia to France, where he was found guilty of crimes against humanity during his time stationed in occupied Lyon. After leaving government in 1986, Badinter was named president of France's Constitutional Council. With his wife, philosopher Elisabeth Badinter, he had 3 children. As a senator from 1995 to 2011, he lived to see the abolition of the death penalty written into the country's constitution, a fight for which he had committed himself to his last breath.
Staying in France, today the former president Nicolas Sarkozy has been found guilty by a Paris appeals court of illegal campaign financing over his 2012 re-election bid. Today's decision confirms what was decided by a lower court. At the time, Sarkozy was sentenced to 1 year in prison, although that was suspended while he launched his appeal. He's always denied the allegations. Now, for the first time in nearly 150 years, the US House of Representatives has voted to impeach a member of the president's cabinet. Republicans in the House accused Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, of not enforcing American immigration laws at the Mexico border.
On this vote, the yeas are 214 and the nays are 213. The resolution is adopted.
By only 1 vote, House Republicans impeached Joe Biden's Homeland Security Secretary. By doing so, they made history. The House of Representatives has only impeached a cabinet secretary once, and that was almost 150 years ago. Republicans, who hold the majority in the House, say Alejandro Mayorkas is responsible for record illegal immigration figures. President Joe Biden's reaction? This is a political stunt. And here is Alejandro Mayorkas' reaction to the charges made before Tuesday's vote.
The allegations are baseless, and I'm focused on the work, which was what brings me to Las Vegas today.
Republicans have indicated they may hold another vote, and they might have the numbers at that point to impeach you. If that happened, would you consider stepping aside?
No, I would not.
The charges are likely to be dropped in the Senate, where Democrats hold the majority. 6.3 million illegal crossings have been recorded since Joe Biden's election. Immigration is one of the 2 top issues for the presidential election, with the